I want to turn now this week to a relatively short and decidedly underread book of the Bible, Esther. We Christians may not know the book very well, but among our Jewish neighbors, it is one that they look forward to reading each and every year. It forms the basis of one of the more lighthearted holidays in the Jewish calendar, Purim, a raucous celebration of Jewish life. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas, and this is your daily devotional for Monday, September 19th, 2022. The story of Esther begins with a bit of backstory. It seems there was a king named Ahasuerus who ruled over the kingdom of Persia, the kingdom that had defeated the Babylonian Empire. Ahasuerus had a wife named Queen Vashti. The backstory begins when Vashti disobeys and therefore displeases Ahasuerus, and as a result, Ahasuerus deposes her as queen and sets out to choose another. This part of the story is really a terrible throwback, for the way he chooses is to have the most beautiful virgins from around the empire come to the palace where they become his royal harem. The one who pleases him most will become queen in Vashti's place. So at this point in the story, we meet a man named Mordecai, a Jew living in Persia whose parents had been among the exiles from Israel when the Babylonians had defeated Judah. Why he and other Jews remained in Persia rather than returning to Judah is a question that is never answered. It is simply part of the story that Jews lived in Persia, and one of them was a man named Mordecai. Mordecai had a niece under his protection, a girl named Esther, whose parents had died. When the king ordered a harem to be assembled, Esther was one of the women chosen to be part of that harem. But following her uncle Mordecai's advice, she didn't reveal her religious and ethnic background, that she was a Jew. Now the story describes the process by which Ahasuerus chooses who will become queen in Vashti's place. Not to put too fine a point on it, he orders a different virgin to be brought to his chamber each and every night, and the one who pleases him the most would be the queen. From our modern perspective, this is an awful part of the story, but as I say, it was apparently the way things were, and is simply part of the storyline, the backstory, if you will, to get us into the main thrust of the story. Now, as you probably already guessed, the king chooses Esther, and she becomes Queen of Persia. That's where we begin the story, and it begins with a banquet for Esther. When Esther was taken to King Ahasuerus for his royal palace in the 10th month, which is the month of Tebet, in the 7th year of his reign, the king loved Esther more than all the other women. Of all the virgins, she won his favor and devotion, so that he set the royal crown on her head and made her queen instead of Vashti. Then the king gave a great banquet to all his officials and ministers, Esther's banquet. He also granted a holiday to the provinces and gave gifts with royal liberality. And with that, the backstory is complete and the real story begins. And it begins with a bit of palace intrigue that discloses something important about both Mordecai and about Esther. Mordecai is a wily character who knows how to operate, and Esther turns out to be faithful in her duties and proves to be a real asset to Ahasuerus. Both of these traits will prove pivotal in how the story unfolds. Here's the intrigue and its resolution. When the virgins were being gathered together, Mordecai was sitting at the king's gate. Now, Esther had not revealed her kindred or her people as Mordecai had charged her, for Esther obeyed Mordecai just as when she was brought up by him. In those days, while Mordecai was sitting at the king's gate, Bigtan and Teresh, two of the king's eunuchs who guarded the threshold, became angry and conspired to assassinate King Ahasuerus. But the matter came to the knowledge of Mordecai, and he told it to Queen Esther, and Esther told the king in the name of Mordecai. When the affair was investigated and found to be so, Both the men were hanged on the gallows. It was recorded in the book of the annals of in the presence of the king. So here's how it happens. Mordecai hears about a plot against the king, but being a Jew, he has no real access to the king. Instead, he tells Esther about the plot with instructions to tell the king. When she does, he investigates, finds the alleged plot to be real, and executes the two who have plotted his death. And with that, Mordecai has shown himself to be a canny operator, Esther has shown herself to be trustworthy, and the king now sees Esther as a trusted partner. Now the story takes a sinister turn, one that we'll examine tomorrow. In the meantime, may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.